Welcome, and thank you all for joining us in this workshop where we're going to be talking about sustainability in the bioeconomy and how that links through to capacity building. So I am Hannah Walker. I'm the Deputy Executive Director at RSB. I am Scottish, but very thrilled to be here enjoying some sunshine and some heat in Nairobi. And I am going to give you a quick run through of the agenda so you know what to expect during the session. And then I'll give a bit of an intro to RSB in just a minute, so for those of you who aren't familiar with us. Now, what we have going on today is we're going to first have a welcome from the RSB Board of Directors, Professor James Oncheku, who's a Chief Research Scientist and Senior Lecturer at Kisii University here in Kenya, is representing our board. We are then going to have the overview of RSB and the sustainable bioeconomy, which I will share. Then my colleague Yitbarek, who's our regional manager for Africa, is going to share some really exciting outputs and outcomes of the various studies and work that we have been conducting across sub-Saharan Africa for the last 8 or so years. Finally, I'm going to invite honored speakers up for a panel discussion focused around empowering the African workforce for sustainability in the bioeconomy. Through it all, we are going to share some outputs of various different reports. You're going to see this QR code again, but if you want to have access to any of the reports, share the slides afterwards, I encourage you to just use that QR code. You might have to zoom in a little, and then you can leave your details, and Yitbarek and I will be in touch next week with all of the materials. With that, James, can I invite you up? Thank you, Professor Oncheku.
Thank you very much. The Deputy Director, Executive Director, Roundtable on Sustainable Biomaterials, Amuchambo Nyote. How are you? Welcome to Kenya. As we have heard, I'm James Oncheku, and I'm one of the members of the directors of RSP, and I was asked to give a few remarks on behalf of the Board of Directors, RSP, as well as the fraternity of RSP. As you know, RSP is a global non-profit making organization which is a multi-stakeholder with a membership of over 170 members drawn from all over the world. The mandate of RSP, as you will hear again from Madam Hannah, is the promotion of bio-based circular bioeconomy, which is a great emerging philosophy. And the bioeconomy philosophy is will be implemented by RSP and has always been implemented by RSP through its robust principles and criteria. If you look at the RSP standard, it's really very, very prolific and very strong and up to task. Now, what is the motivation of RSP getting involved in the transition of economies from the current economic agenda to the now emerging bioeconomy philosophy? It is because of the challenges we have worldwide now, including deforestation, land degradation, biodiversity loss, waste pollution. And these are the key emerging challenges all over the world. And so RSP thought it best that they could address these challenges with specific and strategic partners. And RSP has thought it best to do this through a pathway which is now commonly known as the bio-based circular bioeconomy pathway. And the essence for this pathway is basically to minimize or to avoid various issues such as depletion of natural resources, encourage regenerative practices, prevent loss of natural resources, and also stimulate the 4 R's. such that we can reduce, we can recycle, we can reduce, remanufacture, and so those four are also key in issues of circularity as compared to the linearity of approaches. This approach is also very varied. It's really a varied pathway towards achievement of the sustainable development goals, which the world is working on, and the continued commitment of national governments to the Paris Climate Agreement for sustainable future and intergenerational equity. Now, RSP is leveraging on achieving these aspirations through, the drivers of bioeconomy, circular bioeconomy, which particularly include institutional policies, regulatory frameworks, and in general governance. Because we have the right institutional policies, then we can move the agenda forward. We also, another key driver is technical capacity, which we are focusing on today, particularly, empowering the workforce in Africa to drive the issues of, bio-based circular bioeconomy. Organizational synergies is also key in terms of bringing together, industry, governments, and government organizations, so that the agenda of bioeconomy can actually move forward and have positive impact. Again, social transformation, social behavior change is also one of a very important key driver towards shifting from the current economic model towards the bioeconomy model. Of course, markets are also very important, because for investors, if there are no markets, then shifting to a new philosophy becomes not very easy, and therefore we need to think about incentives for market-driven changes, and this is to accelerate, the paradigm shift from the non-circular fossil-fueled economies towards the bio-based economies. But remember, members, that we are talking about biomass-based economies, and if we are not careful, we will maybe realize that the biomass is also finite. It's it that we will have, continuous supply of biomass. We can have that if, as RSP aspires to do all the time, if we can make sure that the ecological principles are always important, like safeguarding and regenerating the health of agroecosystems, avoiding non-essential products and the waste of essential ones, prioritizing biomass streams for basic human needs, utilizing and recycling byproducts, using renewable energy while minimizing the energy use. RSP is concerned with the global north and the global south divide, which members will have to think about strongly because of the capacity in terms of the north and the south. And is bioeconomy, going to be just transition, or are we going to have, and again, is it going to be inclusive? These are some of the things which I know members will focus on and think about. However, again, we have to leverage on the drivers of the bioeconomy model while working towards, empowering the African workforce. Remember, Sub-Saharan Africa, Eastern Africa, the whole of us, Africa, is less endowed with the drivers of the bioeconomy model. So how do we ensure that we move everybody forward? So having said that, today's agenda is basically trying to see how we can leverage on the drivers of the bioeconomy so that we can move this agenda forward. With those many remarks, I thank you very much for listening to me, and I call upon the director to give us the agenda forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Oncheku, and a real honor to have you join us. As Professor Oncheku discussed, the global South and global North divide is of paramount concern, and we know that a bioeconomy has the potential to build local economies that are completely decoupled from traditional fossil fuels. But it goes a little bit deeper than that. We're talking obviously at the summit, talking so much about bioeconomy, but we haven't spoken in real detail about sustainability. Can I change this? Can I change this? There we go, it's working. So at RSB, we believe that the bioeconomy transition is almost inevitable. What's not inevitable is if it is going to bring those social and environmental positive impacts, those benefits that are going to mean that we truly see a just and sustainable transition. And to be quite frank, if a bioeconomy transition is not sustainable, why are we doing it? So I'm going to give a quick intro to what we're doing at RSB. And as James mentioned, it's also a call to action, an invitation for everyone in this room to join us. RSB is a member association. We're a collaborative network concerned with driving sustainability in the bioeconomy. Now, I wanted to just share a little bit about who we are. So we are a multi-stakeholder organization. And we're a standard-setting organization, and we're really concerned with sector transformation. So we work hard across hard-to-abate sectors like aviation, shipping, chemicals, and others to create a sustainable future in which not only is climate change mitigated, but we can live in harmony with restored ecosystems and where livelihoods are improved. Now, we can't do that alone, and that's why collaboration is absolutely essential. And I'm just going to show you a snapshot of everyone, if this thing works. Hello? There we go, okay. It was working earlier. So we are made up of all of these different organizations that represent different sectors, but they come from civil society, industry, academia, research bodies, and more. And they represent this diverse array of sectors and interests. As an association of members, that is our backbone. And we're united by a common purpose of driving development of a bioeconomy that is just and sustainable. But what does that really mean in practice? Well, we put our members to work. And over more than 15 years, we have worked to develop, through a true continuous multi-stakeholder engagement process and consensus building, a vision and a guideline for what sustainability in the bioeconomy needs to look like, not just should, but needs to look like. Going far beyond emission reductions, to go beyond even doing no harm in communities and the environment, but to actually generate positive impacts for people on the planet. So these principles that you see on screen form the backbone of every piece of our work, which you're going to hear a little bit more about from Yustek in a moment. So when we're developing a project, a program, research, everything that we look at is looking through the lens of this really holistic approach to sustainability. Obviously, I'm just showing you the principles. Underlying them all are criteria and guidance on how to achieve them in different settings. So we want to show that with the right management approaches, the production of feedstocks, fuels, and products can enhance biodiversity, improve soil and water, restore ecosystems, strengthen food security, and overcome the climate crisis. All elements of resilience that are going to be absolutely essential as we increasingly feel the impacts of the climate crisis and climate breakdown. And that breakdown is upon us. So the work of the Stockholm Resilience Centre, which you see on screen, already shows us that we have long gone beyond the safe limits on most planetary boundaries, and we're really pushing up against the other ones that we haven't gone beyond yet. So we are really in a place where we know that a net zero carbon approach is just simply not enough. It's not sufficient. We must work together for approaches that bring and accelerate net positive innovations. So that's why we're here today, to talk about how that net positive sustainability approach for the bioeconomy can be made a reality, how we can work to unlock the solutions and empower the decision makers that really hold humanity's hope. Because those are the decision makers in this room, at this event, in the university halls in Nairobi and Kigali and Tebe and Addis, in offices and parliamentary corridors. Everyone has to come together and be helping us to work all in the right direction for people and the planet. The choices that we make now about the path forward are going to determine our success. As I said, that bioeconomy transformation is all but inevitable. Whether it is sustainable is still up in the air, and we have so little room for error. We have to get it right. So this is the needle that we need to move, and it's why we really think that empowering the workforce, supporting African talent who are going to be the decision makers in all of these rooms, as in policy, in industry, advocating in NGOs, in academia, they are going to be the decision makers that determine our future. So let's work together, because if we get it right, and we hope we're going to get it right, we have to, it can bring so many benefits. But without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Yitatek, who is going to share with you now a little bit more of the concrete work that we've been doing in sub-Saharan Africa over the past few years, and set us up for a panel discussion. Yitatek, over to you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I think that was RSB 101, just giving you the foundations of RSB, our mission, vision, and some of the activities. Sure. Yeah, so my name is Yitatek. I'm from Ethiopia. I'm the regional manager for the RSB, and I'm just going to take you through RSB's engagement in Africa. RSB has been active in African space starting from 2013 in terms of supporting governments devise biofuel strategies. Sorry. And we've been evolving and been active in Africa since then, and we've expanded our efforts in that space. And I'm going to take you through some of the engagements, work, studies that we have conducted along the years. So one of the critical work that we've done is the study we did with the WWF and the International Institute of Applied System Analysis, IASA, which is based in Austria, looking at the potentials of biofuel for sustainable aviation fuel. And with that, we try to look at the potential hotspots and prioritizing or ranking countries based on the potentials, right? And what you need to take note of is that the study was based on a spatial detailed resource assessment and excluding areas of high biodiversity value, food production, and modeling the predicted impacts of climate crisis. And on the study, we've identified the potential feedstocks, which include miscanthus grass, jatropha, sugar, the castor, and all other biofuel feedstocks, and ranked them based on the potentials within the sub-Saharan African countries. On the basis of this, then afterwards, we looked at the top 5 countries and identified Ethiopia as one of the high potential countries for biofuel development. And together with the Ministry of Mines and Petroleum then, we developed a sustainable aviation fuel roadmap, which is a 10-year roadmap to ensure and to see the opportunities that Ethiopia has in terms of biofuel development for aviation fuel. And in that report, we looked at potential feedstocks, conversion technology, And also the benefits, apart from the meeting the international aviation climate goals, there are socioeconomic benefits looking at rural development, job creation, and so forth. And while doing the SAF roadmap, there are some gaps that we have identified. And one of them is we don't have a synergy of policies that would enable our biofuel or bioeconomy strategies to be streamlined. So we are currently now revising the Ethiopian biofuel strategy, which was established in 2007. It's about 17 years. The world's biofuel and bioeconomy dynamics has changed quite a lot. So we are now looking into a variety of feedstock options, not only bio-based but also synthetic, right? Such as the municipal solid waste, green hydrogen, and so forth, to capture all the other potentials. And then after doing that, we zoomed in and did a deep dive into one of the potential feedstocks, that is Brassica carinata, which is more of an indigenous feedstock within in Ethiopia, and we tried to look into whether it's bankable, feasible in the Ethiopian context. And what we found out is that it's competitive globally, and the advantage that Brassica carinata has is, one, it can be a crop, it can be used as a crop rotation. It will definitely improve soil health by for nitrogen fixation. It's a natural pesticide, so basically it will also address food energy nexus, because the leaves are used for human consumption. So those are the kind of amenities that we try to look at, and there's quite an impressive progress, because some companies are looking into these feedstocks and trying to see the potential in that regard. In South Africa, we did a similar kind of approach. We developed a blueprint for SAF production in South Africa together with WWF. Here we're looking at the various feedstocks and conversion technology, looking at solar seeds, which basically been tried, and a test flight was carried out in 2015 or 16, if I'm not mistaken, from Joburg from Cape Town to Joburg, using a fuel produced from Solaris. And currently there's quite interest to revamp that and start that production, and looking at various conversion technologies, looking at HEFA, alcohol to jet, and FDG. And of course, currently South Africa is looking into just transition, and the SAF roadmap would definitely align to their national agenda. And then the other element that we looked at is invasive alien species. I think here, it's not only a problem in South Africa, it's a problem all around the African continent. And in South Africa, to be specific, there about 10% of South African land is covered by IAPs, taking up about 6% of fresh water. As you know, South Africa has, is a water-scarce country, so definitely that would have an impact. And with that increasing to 16% without eradication, if South Africa doesn't address these, it would increase to 16%, and annually from 5 to 10%. That's a huge amount. So that's why we're looking at looking into the RSP sustainability guidance on how to embed the sustainability component of it, just to look into, one, to eradicate the invasive species. Second, we're also looking at land management. So these are the core benefits of looking into the RSP sustainability guidance, and currently it is used for bioenergy and biofuel markets, and currently there are some companies are looking at these resources for their energy sources, and which we are also very much following up. In terms of capacity building, during these exercises of roadmaps, strategies, and we also looked at the capacity needs. And one of the things that came out is that there is a need to train our workforce in terms of sustainability aspects of things. And we delivered a sustainable aviation and carbon offsetting course to the Ethiopian Aviation University because there's appetite for that. And as you may know, Ethiopian Airlines is one of the leading airlines operating in Africa, and the interest for SAF is huge, and we thought this would impact or make impact in that space. And we've delivered that, and we want to expand in that space. In South Africa, we also partnered with the Stellenbosch University looking into sustainability, into PTX and bioenergy sustainability courses to embed sustainability component into their academic work, which basically the world is going to a bio-based feedstock, and we need to have our workforce or from our schools to have the knowledge of sustainability embedded in that, so that when they go out on the industry, they're not going to be, alienated, right? So, and that's one of the approaches that we use. And of course, globally, we are planning to expand our efforts and try to launch an online learning platform, basically focusing on sustainability certification, sustainable feedstock, SAF, GHG calculations, how to do GHG emission calculations, and I think about 7 or 8, if I'm not mistaken, courses we are planning to put on our learning platform, so that the wide community can learn from it. And on that space, we are currently building a program called the RHB Academy program, which basically looking at equipping current and future practitioners and decision makers, not only students, but also actual decision makers, with the practical skills needed to drive a just sustainable transition to a bio-based circular economy. And what does that add value to? And of course, what are the bases for us to sort of come up with this big, ambitious academy program? One, because we have practical, technical sustainability skills, because as Hannah earlier mentioned, we have a standard that is internationally recognized, and we want, we have the skills, practical skills to train and give evidence-based approach to it. We also are, we are a multi-stakeholder organization, and so we do have the knowledge from all the actors that Hannah showed earlier. So all that knowledge is the basis for us to be to give these courses, and we're also looking into delivering these courses in different delivery modes. Perhaps maybe in person, online, or we do a blended approach to provide these sustainability courses. And of course, for the ambition and the goal is that, as ICAO said, no country left behind. We are looking at giving these courses free to NGOs and academia, specifically mainly to the Global South region, right? So basically, this is something that we are really proud of, and we are looking forward to launch this academy this December 2024. So watch the space. We're going to reach out to you if you want to, know more about it. Please just take on this QR code again, and then we will reach out to you on when that would happen. With that, I think I will just give a kind of a first-hand information. Perhaps maybe it's good in Kenya. I think mainly they say it's better to hear it from the horse's mouth. So I'm going to give you a short video by one of the the lead aviation professionals by the name Kwame Beko. He's a Ghanaian by nationality. He's an aviation professional, and basically working for a London-based company, startup company, looking into developing aviation fuel with synthetic sources. So I'm going to play a video which he sort of looked into the prospect of SAF opportunity in Africa, which basically sheds light on what the potential are in this space. Voila. Yes.
Sustainable aviation fuel, also known as SAF, sustainable aviation fuel, is one of the key levers that will be used to decarbonize this sector moving forward. Unlike cars and vehicles and other types of mobility like trains, it's very difficult to use electrification to power aircraft because of the energy density required, particularly for long distance flying. Hydrogen is another solution. However, there are also challenges with the energy density associated with hydrogen. There will be solutions in the short term and for smaller range, smaller sized aircraft. However, for medium haul, long haul, corporate commercial aviation, you really need sustainable aviation fuel. Now, this is important because one of the things that we've come to observe in the world is because of this fact, more and more governments are adding regulation and mandates and requirements for airlines and operators in this space of aviation to use more and more sustainable aviation fuels. What that means is that in the future, there are going to be more and more plants associated with the production of aviation fuels. However, one of the challenges that I personally see today is the fact that in Africa, there are very few planned production plants for this product, sustainable aviation fuel. In fact, in the world, there are currently about 33 plants. There's 130 planned, but we need about 300 by 2030 to help us meet the requirements for net zero and at least to be on that track. Now, this is unfortunate because one of the things we know about Africa is there's an abundance of feedstock in Africa. Not just fossil fuels, which is the existing, which is the old way of powering industries and mobility, but renewable energy, wind energy, hydro, solar, geothermal, which actually is very big in Kenya, a fantastic source of renewable energy. And as I mentioned, what the company I currently work for does is we take renewable energy and we can convert that energy into a liquid fuel that can be used in cars, planes, trucks, you name it. So this really is for me the opportunity for Africa moving forward. The fact that Africa is rich in feedstock should mean that there is great opportunity for individuals like you to get into this space, into the decarbonization space, because there's going to be more and more demand for sustainable aviation fuels. As the technology improves, the cost will come down. And as the cost comes down and it becomes more competitive with fossil-based fuels, it starts eating away into the $5 trillion industry of oil and gas today. Africa has a huge abundance of renewable energies, and it could almost mean that Africa can become energy independent. So moving away from the phase of importing refined hydrocarbon products to the space whereby it produces its own refined hydrocarbons and it has surplus to export. Now, additional market-based mechanisms will help Africa to sell high premium products to organizations which are not based in Africa, but want the carbon credits associated with decarbonization.
Still trying to get this clicker to work. There we go. Oh God. Back. Right. So thank you so much for setting the scene to Kwame and Yitatek. Now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Chris Robertson, who is going to be hosting a short panel discussion. We have 55 minutes actually, so we have some time.
Thank you, Hannah. And can the panelists come up, please? Join us on stage. I will introduce you individually as you come up. I mean, as I ask the questions, but if you could just join us on stage now, that would be great. Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Robertson from RSB. It's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, this is going to be an interesting panel discussion. As you know, and as we've been hearing a lot about this event, there's a huge, huge opportunity for Africa when it comes to the bioeconomy. The question is, how do we take advantage of it? How do we leverage it? What do we need to make sure that Africa's workforce is capacitated so we can ensure no one is left behind? So we have panelists here, experts in the bioeconomy field here in Africa, and we're going to ask them some questions, and hopefully there's some time for some interaction from the audience. I'd like to start with Professor Kashogun Tesafaye. He's a professor of genetics at Addis Ababa University in Ethiopia and the Director General of the Bio and Emerging Technology Institute. Professor, there you are. We were at the workshop yesterday on intergenerational dialogue. I don't know if anyone else was there, but it was a great workshop talking about the importance of the youth and integrating the youth in terms of the bioeconomy. I was wondering if you could just set the scene, the context, introduce why it's so important to involve the youth, and then also a bit about the role of educational institutions in supporting them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. So as you all agree with me, I mean, bio-based product and technologies are basically derived from biological resources. That includes biomass, primary agricultural products, and also bio-based urban waste. But these are not the sole or a single input to build bioeconomy. That really requires the applications of and also the use of advanced technological tools and innovations to really transform bioproduct, to transform bioresource into a usable form of high-value bioproduct. So generally in terms of biological resources in Africa, we are in a better position as you heard from the previous speaker. So what is the key point is whether the African institutions or higher learning institutions are equipping the young graduates with relevant skills and technology capacity to do the job. So in my view, most of the African higher learning institutions, with few exceptions of course, they are lagging behind in terms of equipping the young graduates with those skills that prepares for this particular activity and job. So basically the bioeconomy requires skills in multidisciplinary science, for instance, like biotechnology, bioprocess engineering, biochemical engineering, material science and engineering, and also the enzyme technologies. These are the key technologies that really needs to equip our young graduates for this particular bioeconomy initiatives. And in most cases, when you scan the programs in various universities in Africa, you find like the traditional sciences like biology, chemistry, physics, and like botany, animal science, zoology, and stuff like that. So, well, we need those sciences. Those sciences are like a fundamental science and the foundation science for the rest of the multidisciplinary science. But we really need to switch our gear and give a due attention and focus on the applied multidisciplinary field and then combine that with bio entrepreneurship course. That is really the way we should go. And few programs here and there, like biotech programs, they have also like relevant skill, especially hands-on skill, and also technological capacity to do those activities. For instance, if you, because I'm teaching graduate students in the university and also in the Bio and Emerging Institute, I'm recruiting those students, so I can tell you the gap they have. So when it comes to a practical course in a conventional biotech activity, for instance, tissue culture, and then also some hands-on techniques like PCR, they're fine. When it comes to the advanced courses or advanced skills of molecular biology, enzymology, and things like that, that is where the gap is. So the higher learning institution should really think of practical-based lab skill and also internship through university industry linkage. And of course, we should also think of organizing some sort of short-term training course, and of course combine this with bio-entrepreneurship, and of course focus on graduate research related to bioeconomy, like biomaterials and stuff like that. So in terms of potential, I can say we are in a better position. I mean, there is a huge expansion in various African nations, secondary and tertiary educations, but still the gap, the practical aspect of those courses are, you can consider it as a big gap. So the labs and the workshops are either there without any laboratory equipment or workshop equipment, or in some cases you find laboratory and workshop equipment, but the running cost is a big challenge at university level. And of course, we have a trainable young graduates and high young population. And of course, in majority of the nations in Africa, agriculture still plays a key economic role. And so the concept of bioeconomy is not something new. So we still can build on this key stuff to really value add and transform the West into some useful wells. Of course, huge biodiversity coupled with cultivable land and also diverse agroecology could be considered as a potential. And of course, the underutilized biomass from primary product agriculture is another potential we have. And of course, large market and consumer society could be considered as potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Yeah, it's a real privilege to have you up here joining us from one of the few institutions, as you said, working on the bioeconomy in Africa. But yeah, and I think that also segues quite well into the next question. If I may introduce Professor Samir Himir, a registered professional engineer in aerospace engineering, recognized by the Engineering Board of Kenya, and he also serves as the director of the School of Aerospace and Vehicle Engineering at the Technical University of Kenya. And now we've just got an introduction into the need for skills. And I was wondering if you could elaborate on that, on what kind of skills are actually necessary for the African workforce, for the youth that are coming through the graduates program, and maybe specifically if we're building on the presentation on the SAF opportunity here. What specific in the aerospace industry, what skills are required there? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me an opportunity. I'll first start with the fact that aerospace engineering is a very highly regulated and seclusive field, and the engineering that engulfs it is encapsulated in the form of safety. That's why safety is of critical importance. And being the most highly regulated field, we have 4 disciplines: aerodynamics, structures, flight mechanics and control, which sometimes also imbues avionics, and also propulsion systems, of which SAF also has its place in the context of sustainable propulsion systems. So I believe Boeing and Airbus had released a report that 20,000 technicians and technologists would be required. What is the engineering that we are providing in universities to ensure that criteria is met? And also the engineers, because currently in Kenya, our industry is very maintenance-centric. So so that means the psychomotor skill set is more utilized as opposed to the cognitive design capabilities, because we want to introduce design. And I've had that conversation with the former DG of Kenya Civil Aviation Authority and even the current DG, Captain Emil Arao, on the same front, that we don't only want to do inspection of aircrafts. So that's very important, how we bring STEM, STEAM, STEAM-I into the picture, how we train our engineers in terms of local and international collaboration, making sure they are practitioners in the field. For example, our school is highly centric in industry. So if I have to go and teach gas dynamics and jet propulsion, I would take them to Wilson Airport. They would actually see a turboprop being split apart, or what we call an engine split, so they can get a fair shake of things of what is required in aerospace. Now, as far as the decarbonization aspect is concerned in aeronautical engineering and the influx that is brought about by CORSIA, standards from ICAO and all that, it's becoming very important. The first SAF flight, long-haul flight, was undertaken by Kenya Airways in Africa. And that was a successful flight because ENI used the biogenic biojet fuel combined with 50% of Jet A1 fuel, and they were able to have a long-haul flight. For Ethiopia, in May 2023, Ethiopian Airlines was able to conduct a flight of a similar sort, but it came in the form of a delivery or from Airbus on an A350-900. This was on a Boeing 787-900. So it is important to contextualize sustainable aviation fuels in the way they are formed by the HEFA process, as we all know. And the second most important thing about SAF is that it has a drop-in fuel architecture, which means you don't have to make any drastic or significant changes in the design of the turbofan engine that we use in aircrafts, but more so there is that what we call transferability of skills and technology as we look at that. So it's extremely important that we fully comprehend this case. We create the linkages, the laboratories. I know I even did my postdoc in South Africa, and my studies at Georgia Tech, being a Yellow Jacket alumni, I will always say one thing: you can't find all the laboratory equipment at one place, all the state of the art. It's only done at best through collaboration and sharing and domestic partnerships that we can do with Kenyatta University, JKUAT, East Africa School of Aviation. These are the prominent areas that aerospace is being conducted in a very rigid and robust manner. So that is what I would like to answer, and also to make our program industry-centric, because engineers are practitioners. Engineers are not applied physicists or applied mathematicians. We use physics and mathematics to design and build something. So the engineering hinges on design. So if we are going to produce theoreticians in our university, that will not solve the case that you have asked of me to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. And it's great to hear that such great work is being done. It really gives us a lot of hope. But we also need that enabling environment. So I'd like to introduce now Professor Nicholas Ozur. He's also a professor, of course, of public policy and the executive director of the African Technology Policy Studies Network in Nairobi, Kenya. Professor, thank you for joining us. I'm wondering if you could just tell us about the importance of this enabling environment, the policy enabling environment, how valuable or how necessary it is for us to provide a space for these skills to be leveraged, and if there are any developments that we need to know of that to give us some more hope about what's actually happening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator. Thank you, RSB, for inviting me for this very important discussion. I will start by making a statement that I usually make in this kind of event or conference, where I state that policy or politics is superior to science. I know we have engineers here, we have scientists here, but I can tell you that what drives, because the director board was talking about policy, and I can tell you that politics is what drives, oh, he was talking about drivers of bioeconomy. So politics is what drives mainly any developmental objective in any country or region. You may be the best engineer, you may be the best scientist, but someone who may not even be a graduate might dictate how you do that your science and how you do that your engineering. That is why political goodwill is very, very important and helps to fast track any developmental objective, including that of bioeconomy. And if I can zero in directly to the issue of bioeconomy policy, I want to state that in Africa, various countries have been at different stages of bioeconomy policy or strategy development. If we understand policy, and particularly public policy, as a statement of intent, as an action, or even inaction, because we are talking about even genetically modified organisms. Some countries may not want to speak about it. Inaction, and that is also a kind of policy. So when a country keeps quiet and they don't want to make an emphatic statement, it is not that they have not heard about that concept, but they don't want to commit. Because committing or saying anything, because the lawyers used to, or the police officers, when they come for arrest, they say, you have the right to remain silent, because anything you say will be used against you in the court of law. Because whatever thing you say at that point can be used against you. So, public policy, which is now what governments have stated, or their intentions on how to carry out developmental objectives, are very important. When we talk about bioeconomy policy, like I said, many countries are at different stages of developing these bioeconomy policies or strategies. We remember that as far back as 2014, South Africa was one of the first countries to develop bioeconomy strategy. And this bioeconomy strategy has been very instrumental, especially in the area of agriculture, in biopharmaceuticals, and industry, has been instrumental in creating or contributing up to more than 15% to their GDP. And you can see that this is not a joke if you can get up to 15% from a particular economic development. So, however, many countries having realized the importance of bioeconomy development, many regions having realized the importance of bioeconomy development, have been following suit since then. Currently, we have countries like Ethiopia doing very well in biotechnology and sustainable forestry. Kenya have biotechnology policy. Nigeria, Morocco, Uganda, they have some policies and strategies. But I want to actually commend the East African community for having a regional bioeconomy strategy because it has provided a kind of roadmap which countries in this region can mirror and develop their own or adopt their own national bioeconomy strategy. This has been very important, and we have, luckily, my organization, the ATPS, participated in developing and contributing to this bioeconomy strategy for East Africa, and we provided resources and intellectual property to that in partnership with many other organizations led by the Easteco. So policy, if you do not have policy, you will not have that enabling environment because it defines, one, what are the key stakeholders involved. So it defines the ecosystem of the innovation pathway, the government, the research, the private sector, and so the civil society. It defines the country's comparative advantage. You will be able to know where do you invest more, just like South Africa found that their main comparative advantage is in biopharmaceuticals or in agricultural biotechnology and GM, maize, cotton, and soybean, and all those. And this is helping them. So you first of all do that situational analysis and be able to do sensitization of those of stakeholders for them to understand. Many countries don't yet realize and embrace biotechnology or bioeconomy because the key stakeholders have not been mapped, they have not been convened to understand the importance of bioeconomy development, and this must be done. This is the recommendation that we give to every country who want to embrace bioeconomy, including regions. I had approached, for instance, ECOWAS, telling them to borrow a leaf from EAC, because the advantage is too much. If a policy says, let me give an example in Nigeria, there's a policy that says that you add 10% of the total fuel production, 10% of ethanol, organic ethanol, to the fuel, to the petrol. This statement by the government, for instance, immediately created over 1,000 jobs within 6 months because people were now planting those the feedstock that we feed into the production of ethanol. So this is the kind of political statements that can be made by government and supporting it with strategy, with policy, with frameworks that will help them to create enabling environment for the private sector, because government do not know how to do business. It is the private sector. They must partner with the research institutions, and then under the guidance of the government regulatory framework, and then be able to do the business that is required. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, it feels like I just did a master's degree in public policy there. It was very good. Thank you very much. But yeah, again, another great segue into talking about what it's like on the ground, involving the private sector. So our last panelist for this session, Gladys Kivati, welcome. Gladys is a sustainability and ESG specialist and the founder of Sustainable Business Consulting Limited here in Kenya. And yeah, maybe the practical implementation of what we've been talking about. What's that experience like? What is the challenges that we're facing on the ground? What is the experience on the ground? And what are the things we need to keep in mind of if we're trying to take everything from the frameworks that we've been speaking about here on stage, developing the skills, and then transferring them into actual businesses on the ground. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. So I'd really like to look at this from maybe re-asking the question. So why is it that we are not able to effectively utilize biomass? in its rightful manner. And what we do at SPC, we really work a lot with enterprises. I think over the last 9 years, we've worked with over 5,000 enterprises across Africa. And we mainly focus on enterprises that are focusing on sustainability, or that are trying to promote environmental and social impact. And of course, we've seen capacity being mentioned here. And one of the challenges we've actually seen on the ground is these enterprises having the capacity to either develop new products to do value addition, as well as to invest in research and development. And definitely this is from, I think, what the professor here said, what people learned in school, the type of capacity they have to develop new products. And I can be very practical in a way. We've worked a lot with businesses within the honey value chain. And if you go to the supermarket right now, to any store, for instance, if you happen to walk around in Nairobi, you'll see the same type of products. You've heard of the BSF technology. We have a lot of enterprises that are doing that similar technology in a similar way. So when you think about sustainability of these enterprises, or even scaling their operations, they're operating within the same market environment with the same product, the same value chain, with no innovation, because maybe a group was trained on how to do something and they've just replicated this, and this maybe has cost over some generations. So the capacity to actually innovate and develop new products or new versions of products, I think, is one thing that we've actually seen. Another technology we've actually come across that is the capacity to process. So most products, especially most bioproducts, are in their natural form, but for you to actually add value and get, say, revenue, or to really run a sustainable business, is how do you actually do value addition? We've worked a lot with cooperatives, and you've seen that most of these products are either produced at the same time. For instance, coffee harvesting or tea harvesting, or even mango harvesting, is done at the same time, or even honey harvesting. Like, you'll find most of these products are in specific regions. If you want to do value addition of certain products, or even, say, producing bagasse, from sugarcane. You find most farmers in the Western region are harvesting all at the same time. And so all the byproducts are happening at the same time. So what happens to the market? It becomes saturated. And so these are some of the challenges when you think about market access to some of these products. It's difficult to scale. And this is a challenge of, of getting the right, say, capacity to either innovate. And really, this is just a call to action to how do we actually bridge the gap between science and entrepreneurship development. There's so many innovations on how you can actually do value addition of products. And we've seen these challenges, especially of the enterprises. Right now, today, we are having a workshop of clean energy enterprises with women. And you will find we're having 50 women in a room, and you will find 30 or rather 20 of them have a similar product. And they're taking this product to the same market, to the same target group. So how do we bridge this gap? They're taking bio-based product, but for them to be able to be sustainable, to create jobs, to create this systemic change within the ecosystem, there's need for us to innovate. And another challenge we've also come across is regulations. And I'm glad you really talked about, like, politics supersedes, all these innovations you're coming across. I can give you an example. There's an enterprise we were working in that got seeds to produce, to press oil, to produce edible oil. And we realized that this person could not get certification from KEBS. For those that are in Kenya, or maybe those that understand, for you to actually display your product in the supermarket, you really have to get that certification notice from the authority. And so you found that this enterprise could not actually scale their product beyond their village because they could not get that certifying body. Because they're somewhere in Kakamega. Kakamega is somewhere in the Western region. They have these 5 acres of edible oil seed that they have planted. They have come up with a machine to press the oil. They're putting the oil in a plastic, like these water bottles you're using. But still, you find that they're not able to scale their product to other markets because they've not gotten that license. They even don't know where to go for that type of license. So we come in and support them to access this. But you see, these are some of the gaps. The regulatory of, this is what the regulation says, this is what you're supposed to do for you to scale your product, to scale your business, and you're not able to access some of these services. So that is also another challenge. And how do we actually and ensure that this policy actually gets down to the policy environment. And then another challenge we've also come across, especially around women, and also we can call it more of a cultural barrier, is access to land rights. If you're looking at the social issues within the bioeconomy space, we're talking about bio-based products. And say, for instance, for young people, young women, to actually be able to benefit or even play in the bioeconomy space, they have to access land, right? Most of these bioeconomy products comes from our natural resources, but they don't have access to these resources. They don't have land rights, they don't have possession, they cannot commercialize what is in their possession, so they're not able to actually earn a living. And this actually takes us back to what about how can you actually be able to create social impact out of bioeconomy products? And all these challenges, definitely they're linked with bioeconomy in a way or another. And maybe the last one that I think we've all had in this conference on and on again is access to finance. I may have the skills, I may have the capacity, I may have the goodwill to actually do business, but I don't have access to, say, infrastructure. I don't have access for machinery to press my edible oil to sell to the market. I may not have the infrastructure or the asset to actually convert this product into an economical product. And we've seen access to finance being one of the things that is really affecting some of these businesses that we engage. And I'm hoping that there's room. I think yesterday there was a fund that was being rolled out. There are a lot of funds that are actually promoting some of these initiatives. But how can we actually refocus support to such enterprises to ensure that they're able to scale their businesses, that they're able to just address some of the systemic challenges?
Thank you, Gladys. I really appreciate the view from on the ground, the practical view. I think what I'm getting from this is that there's a lot of important role players that we have to take into account from academia to policy and business. Everyone has a role to play. And I think those role players need to collaborate as well. And I think bringing Yitatek now into the fold, what do we need to focus on at RSB? I know RSB is very much into getting different role players working together to advance the bioeconomy. What have you learned from this panel discussion that we need to be focusing on at RSB?
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. I think most of the things that we saw while we were conducting our studies in African countries are some of the examples that have been mentioned. Politics plays a role. There is a skill gap, especially practical skill gaps. There is also issue of capacity in terms of, like what Professor mentioned about the likes of Boeing and Airbus are looking at technicians. But what we teach them at institutions might not be the best way to do in addressing some of the current demands that the industry requires. And we need to blend that. And that's why when we crafted the course for sustainable aviation fuel, we are just trying to equip the upcoming future workforce to be ready for the forthcoming industry needs and address those issues or those gaps that we've seen in this specific field. And one other thing that I think most of the other speakers have not mentioned would be the policy synergies. I think there is a problem of policy synergies that we need to look into, because every ministry has its own targeted agenda, targeted goals, but there is no synergy within the ministries. Perhaps maybe bioeconomy might be interpreted in a different way from the Ministry of Industry perspective, and that has to align. And from RSB perspective, I think the areas in terms of embedding sustainability into the academia and trying to ensure that the upcoming workforce also is knowledgeable and aware of the current sustainability requirements, especially looking into the decarbonization agenda, is very important. One, we need that kind of collaboration that we have to work together to ensure that the bioeconomy space is actually addressed within the African framework. Because eventually what we have as a guideline is either a Eurocentric approach or rather international, which actually doesn't apply when you come to the African context. So we need to build our own pathway in terms of interpreting bioeconomy. Eventually, I mean, currently, I mean, Africa is basically interlinked with nature. It's basically framing it in a way that actually further add value into what we have currently and embracing the bioeconomy. So I would say that this is a very refreshing kind of a panel because we are on the same page. We are looking at, from policy perspective, what we need to do is to synergize. From capacity perspective, I think Professor Kasaun and Professor Samir have mentioned there's a capacity issue and practical skills needed, and of course from the actual auditors doing the practical work on the field, there is that kind of gap that we need to address. So for us, it is something that we are looking forward to. Thank you.
Thanks, Jitatek. Yeah, a really great discussion here, or points being made by everyone, and I think we've got enough time to open it up to the floor before we close off. Is there anyone that would like to ask some questions to the panelists? There we go.
Hi everyone. It's not really a question, but I'd like to acknowledge Professor Samir. I was a student at Technical University of Kenya, and I'm going to mention something which will help us to maybe understand what this issue of practical skills and the workforce means. I studied aeronautical engineering early on, and what I saw is that when we went for attachment at Wilson, as you said, we found out that the technicians, because of course the industry now, the aviation industry in Kenya is mostly maintenance-based. So the technicians who did not even have the academic qualifications we had, but had sat at Wilson under the engineers and learned the actual skills and managed to get licenses, they were the ones we were competing for jobs with. In fact, we were not competing for jobs, they had our jobs. So that is one of the reasons I partially abandoned that skill, and I went on to other things now. So practical skills, and I still always, when I meet people in industry, I say, where did we leave the word or the work of apprenticeship? Maybe that could fill the skill gap that we are seeing. Apprenticeship, it looks old-fashioned, but it works. Go look at the aviation, the automotive industry. It works all the time, at least for Kenya and most African countries. Maybe it's something we need to rethink and relook, and not only see education in the prism of universities and colleges. There's also vocational training. Why are we not looking at that? Why isn't the discussion going that way? So, and also just to mention something based on what Professor Nicholas has said, and I think he was in ISESA, South Africa, and the issue that was really coming up is the issue of policy. We are saying politicians, if you don't have their goodwill, what you have may not necessarily pass, because I thought it was only Africa until I saw the migration debate in Europe from 2015. I mean, the policy now is following the fact that, okay, the politicians want to be politically correct and say, okay, it's fine, you can come in as long as you're legal, this and that. But the populace is saying we don't want immigrants. So what's happening? Now Sweden is paying you to live. That shows you what politicians want. They want something that is in their interest, and that is to please the voter. So whatever we are doing in bioeconomy, I was saying yesterday that, again, the technical community is speaking to itself. The general populace may not even understand what we are doing. Most of them are even doing bioeconomy without even knowing that's what they're doing. So once it is popularized on the ground, once these skills are on the ground, then we are able to convince the politicians because they can see their people earning an income and they want to associate with that. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much for that comment. Yours is a special case. And I don't think I would leave aerospace engineering. For me, I even tell my wife that aerospace engineering is the way of life. That's a bit too much, and even in a family gathering of sorts. But I must agree with you on the apprenticeship and mentorship programs that we have developed. Our year 3 students, year 4, are already being mentored in industry as we speak. KQ and some other airlines at Wilson Airport. I myself have, there are two things. There's something about upskilling and reskilling. I myself wear the technician clothes. After 5, you'll find me at Helint International. I have done 5 months of on-the-job training so that I can sit for the licensure. This is a big problem to understand what a technician and technologist does versus what an engineer does. So even if you go to South Africa, you go to the US, where I studied at Georgia Tech, even if you're at Lockheed Martin in Marietta, Georgia, which built the beautiful bird, the F-22 Raptor, there are people who are part of the design team who don't hold those wrenches, the torque wrenches that we hold sometimes. And that's the thing I was discussing with the top people from KCA and others, that we must introduce engineering design into the mix. And I'll give you a case study of a lady under 40. Her name is Engineer Nyambura. She's running a startup at Strathmore University. She's an aerospace engineer, but she developed a prognostic-based tool for KQ. So you can always inspire from preventative maintenance and all that. Getting licensure, we are talking about the psychomotor skills. Even the definition of a pilot is not only based on basic physics, geography, and chemistry from high school. If you were to fly the F-22 or the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter, you need a bit more than that. You need an aerospace degree. And even after that, only 90% to apply, only 10% are selected for that job of flying that particular supersonic aircraft. So it's very important to set the context. We are together. I'm at the office in S604 at Technical University of Kenya. You can pay me a visit, but I would say I would not agree with you on one thing of changing a skill set, because that means you have not understood aerospace engineering. And I'll be vehemently honest with you, because aerospace engineering, and in my opinion and in the opinion of many others, docket all forms of engineering. I know I get a lot of criticism, but I always say the firstmost field of engineering was military engineering, and everything trickled down from it. So aerospace acts as a docket. I liked, I don't know whether you came to the presentation by Dr. Kelly yesterday. She discussed a lot of, from the US State Department of Energy and all this. There were so many centers that were sponsoring. Finally, there was a logo of NASA. And that really substantiates what I've just said, that aerospace is in the midst and is centric to all things we do. And that's why China has better understood it. They've even gone that far to have a university called Shenyang Aerospace University. And highway engineering, all forms of, all constituencies of civil and mechanical are embedded in aerospace engineering. But not to take into account the challenges. I'm not ignoring the challenges. I liked the apprenticeship programs. We can always do better. We're not saying we are perfect. We've got a lot of things that we are a young school. If you look at our school where you studied, you saw professors, then suddenly tutorial fellows. So we need more staffing. We need to capacitate, as the other instructors talked about, as the other colleagues. And then I always come to this whole idea of bringing politics. I know you have edged it to the other brother professor of mine close to me, but I will always tell you four things. Part of a quadruple helix articulation involves four things: government, industry, academia, and the community in which you are trying to. If Mheshimiwa Dr. William Samoei Kipchirchir Ruto came and told you he needs a fighter jet by 2030, he doesn't know much about aerospace engineering, but he has told you what you want. The industry has heard what he has alluded to. So you can work together, industry and academia, to move that forward. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you want to say one
Yeah.
thing? Yeah, let's.
Sorry, I just wanted to say also building on, so one thing maybe we are doing with the universities as well, especially in product development. So there's something we call human-centered design. Has anyone come across that word? So what we do is we realize that there's so many students that have products that have innovations at the university level. So what you're doing is you're bringing them together with users for them to prototype and develop their first MVP. And this also helps, especially for those that are entrepreneurial. So our target here is for those that are willing to get into entrepreneurship. So I'm thinking this is also a strategy other institutions can leverage, either trying to partner with private sector institutions that can validate and test and prototype some of these bio-based innovations with potential users so that they can enhance scalability, or rather these innovations not just lying on paper, research projects, you know, once they leave school, they're there. So that's just an idea that we are doing.
Very quickly, this one is to RSB actually. I know that you've done a lot of work in terms of the research you do, but to help to translate this research work to policy, I would advocate, or I would recommend that you work with institutions like us, the technology policy institutions, in translating some of your research efforts into policy. We have many methodologies and approaches that we use to reach out to policymakers through policy briefs, through breakfast meetings, through stakeholder engagement and high-level policy advocacy. These are the ways, because most research outputs are left in the shelf there. But until you disseminate the outcome of or outputs from your research, that is when these policymakers can utilize them, because most of them are not aerospace engineers or whatever you may call it. Some of them are lawyers who are made to be minister for CS for aerospace, for instance. And therefore, you need to bring them to table, like the kind of things Uganda do, or Central African Republic. Even though you have parliamentary committees, they still liaise with the professors in relevant fields when they want to seek for very specific opinions on certain issues. So I would welcome RSB to work with us, the ATPS, in translating most of their research work into useful policies. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ozor. I think I can't agree more.
Just one statement. I mean, at national level, we need really to focus on building national innovation ecosystem suitable for bioeconomy. So within that framework was the fund from USAID, where we have started to establish AfriBio hubs at KU here in Nairobi and also in Addis. So that would basically stimulate innovations in the area and also startup in the area. Thank you.
All right, I'm just going to hand over to you to take for closing remarks, and then we would like to thank the panelists. So please do stay to thank the panelists. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Even though I've gone past through lunchtime, I just wanted to thank the panelists for giving us insight, and I think you've given us some assignment as well. I can't agree more with you, Professor Ozor. I think institutions like yours Also the Technical University of Kenya and also the Biotechnology Institute are potential partners for RSB, and we are going to pursue you and become members of RSB. And I think I will end this session by just picking out the key takeaways. I think, one, I think there is a need for collaboration and partnership. That's something that I think that came out of this conversation and from our discussion earlier. There is also the need for a capacity building, and of course we're going to look into sustainability embedded in some of the courses with the universities and academic institution, and that's what we're going to look forward to work with you. And the Afrocentric approach is one thing that we have to look for in that respect. And as an African proverb which says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, we have to go together. And to drive this bioeconomy to get a little bit further, I think we need to work as units, collaborate, partner, and drive to that far-reaching bioeconomy space that we all want in Africa. With that, I submit, and I wish you a pleasant lunchtime, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon. And of course, we're going to pursue you. If you look into the QR code, we're not going to shy away and reach out to you. So thank you very much.